games. Home against the Giants, home against Arizona, and then at the Giants. I think the Giants are not a 5-9 team, in my opinion. I think they're worse than that. I just can't see it. There's a chance the Giants, that last week of the season, it's the old saw, don't let a team hang around. Philly's got to put their foot on their throat and get the hell out of there. I guess anything could happen, but we'll ask a couple of very learned gentlemen what their thoughts are as the Eagles prepare for the New York Giants on Christmas Day. Xander, let's bring this gentleman in here, the host of the NFL Matchup Show, and, of course, a veteran of every NFL sideline, Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, Pat. Merry Christmas to you and everybody at JAKIB Media and all the viewers of This Week in Pro Football. Right. 3 weeks left, and it's going to be an intriguing 3 weeks in Philadelphia. I got to tell you that right now.
I think so, Sal. Now, we're going to take just a quick look back. As you often point out to me, I know what the name of the show is, but we're going to just look back a second. Sal, the last 3 weeks, the Eagles' offensive points, 19, 13, 17. Just give me your take here. What is grinding down the Eagle offense right now?
Jalen Hurts. I think that's the number one reason. Clearly, if you want to look at big picture, Pat, he's turned the ball over too much. He has got 17 turnovers in 14 games. That's nearly double what he had last year. He's not seeing the field very well. He's not taking what the defense gives him. He's forcing the football. We saw that against Seattle in the fourth quarter, in the second half last week. He had opportunities to move the football down the field and forced it. So I think the number one reason is Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts was right to walk the cat back a little bit, as they like to say in the CIA, and say what he was talking about me when he said the word we. It does start with Jalen Hurts. He knows that. Nick Sirianni knows that. Brian Johnson knows that. He can't turn the ball over like he's doing, and he's got to be able to see the field better and just make the throws that he made last year. That's good enough.
Sal, you were kind enough to send me some quotes from Nick Sirianni from an interview he did with Jeff McClain. And Sirianni mentioned the turnovers. He said that statistically Hurts is playing very similar to last year, except for two major areas. He mentioned the turnovers. The other thing he mentioned, Sal, was big plays. Right. What, in your opinion, is preventing the Eagles from gobbling up big chunks of yardage like they did last year?
Well, teams are focusing in on their big playmakers. They're focusing on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And Dallas Goedert was out for a while, and he's slowly being reincorporated into the offense. And Jalen Hurts is not pitching the ball to Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, and he's not seeing the field and just taking what the defense gives him.
Right.
When you do that, it has a cause and effect on what the defense will do.
Right.
And that will open things up for Smith and Brown. He's been almost exclusively targeting the number 1, 2, and 3 receivers on the team. Receivers meaning Dallas Goedert, a tight end.
Right.
So he did take that shot to Quez Watkins. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Quez Watkins never comes down with the jump ball like that.
I know.
It's a low percentage throw. It was a low percentage throw on a double team to A.J. Brown when he had Devontae Smith open. I did not like Nick Sirianni's answer. You got Timmy Mack on the show. Murderers Row today, Pat, on This Week in Pro Football.
That's
Callahan, right. Paolantonio, McManus. Bang, bang, bang.
Right.
You asked Timmy Mack the question that he asked Sirianni about that throw to A.J. Brown, and Sirianni's answer, which was, in my view, just not believable. The answer is not believable. You ask him about it.
I will certainly do that, and I appreciate that very much. Sal, you made reference in some other conversations we've had about, the Eagles. Did the Eagles scheme to get guys open, Sal? I mean, I don't know. I know the game pretty well, but it just seems to me like, the 49ers, since Bill Walsh had dark hair, have schemed guys open with crossing patterns and massive amounts of yards after the catch. I just don't see that with Philadelphia. I see those bubble screens to Dallas Goedert where he's asking Devontae Smith to block. It just seems to me a lack of imagination.
This is where I call a timeout on Pat Callahan.
All right.
Pat, you can't compare Bill Walsh to anybody, okay? So relax back there in the studio. We're not going to compare Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni to Bill Walsh and Joe Gibbs, okay? We're just not.
Right.
So it's not as intricate for sure. Kyle Shanahan learned at the knee of his father, Mike Shanahan, who's a Hall of Fame coach. So these guys run intricate offenses, and the Niners in particular right now have 4 guys who can score from anywhere on the field. The Eagles don't have that.
No. They had it a lot more last year than they do. I mean, they had almost the same personnel. But as we talked about, the big plays just haven't been there. And I think maybe that lies more with number one than with anybody else.
I believe that it does. It's the turnovers. It always comes back to that. I've interviewed Nick Sirianni before games now for 2.5 years. And he always talks to me about winning the double positive. The double positive is turnovers and explosive plays. He preaches that to the team the night before in the hotel, the day of the game before they go out on the field. They got to win the double positives. And he talks to me about that all the time. Turnovers and explosive plays. And both of them are killing the Eagles offense right now. They just are. If they fix that and they go on, you know, Pat, it's really interesting. If you remember, I think it was the first or second show this year, we were talking about the records. And I said the Eagles are a 12-5 team this year. I said, I looked at the end of the year schedule and I said, boy, this is not going to be easy. They're a 12-5 team this year.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to best that. They're going to best it, but it was very prescient of you to even say that.
Well, you know, the thing is, I did say that, but the point of it is that, you know, can they erase the bad feelings of the 3-game losing streak with this 3-game win streak and go in with a positive attitude? If they win 3 in a row and get a home playoff game, they're going to be home sleeping in their own beds, eating their own home cooking for a month. That goes a long way to fixing a team's psyche. It really does.
It does. I mean, just one last word, just to augment what you were saying. Monday night, the Eagles' longest completion to a wide receiver, 17 yards. That's just not going to do it. The Hurts had 143 yards passing in the entire game, and that just speaks very loudly.
Well, we all know what Pete Carroll's defense has been for a quarter of a century, for crying out loud. The safeties play deep. They play cover 2. There's a hole in the middle of the defense. Take the hole in the middle, and they get after the quarterback, and their linebackers are super active and super good. Take the hole in the middle and move the ball downfield. They had a chance to do that at the end of the game. They could have closed it out, but Hurts went for too much. He learned, listen, Hurts is tough, man. He's mentally tough. The team is mentally tough. They get a little bit of a break with this schedule. Now they got to figure out how to just win this game. Don't worry about Arizona or the Giants down the road. Just Christmas night, in front of the hometown fans, all the presents are open, the roast beast has been eaten. Sit down and just watch the game and make sure the Eagles close out the Giants. I got a number for you, Pat.
Yeah.
You know that Tommy DeVito has been sacked the 5th most of any quarterback in 2023, and he's only played 7 games.
There you go.
He's been sacked 35 times in 7 games. He averages, math major, but that's pretty simple math. That's 5 times a game.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, that is, we're going to get now. We're going to segue after this break. We're going to segue to the defensive side of the ball. I want to talk to Sal Pao about that. Also, about whether this is, in fact, a get-well game for Philadelphia. And then we're going to look with Sal around at the playoff seeding and get a take from him on who's rising and who's not rising in both conferences. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by Kennedy Ford. Welcome back. This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan joining you along with my guest, Sal Paolantonio. Give me a follow on X at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. All right, Sal Pal, you segued into the defensive side of the ball. Before we get to a look at the playoff picture, just a word about this. The Eagles, only 15 takeaways so far this year. That's about one per game, tied for 24th. Last year, the Eagles had 70 sacks, Sal. This year, through 15 weeks, 39. To what do you attribute the fall off in the defense's ability to force turnovers and the ability to sack the quarterback?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think that the secondary, decimated by injuries, has allowed teams to get open down the field quickly, and that means the ball is coming out much more quickly, and it is. The numbers show that. Quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball much more quickly. So when the ball comes out quick, it's hard for the pass rush to get home.
Right.
That's number one. I think the fact that you had a new defensive coordinator in Sean Desai, and they couldn't quite figure out exactly how to dial up the right pressure at the right time. That's number two. Right. And number three is you've had some injuries on the defensive line that you've had to deal with, and at the linebacker position. I would say the number one issue in the defense has been the mixing and matching because of injuries. Now, Sean Desai was the fall guy. Let's call it what it was. You know, sometimes somebody's got to go. You got to shake things up. I'm not going to fault Nick Sirianni for shaking things up, but the proof is Matt Patricia comes in against Seattle,
right, and
they lose to Drew Lock in the fourth quarter. A fourth quarter come from behind drive that goes the length of the field.
I know.
So, you know, this is not going to be an easy fix for sure. I'm not going to tell Matt Patricia how to coach defense. The guy's coached Super Bowl teams in New England. He knows what he's doing. He's got an aeronautical engineering degree from RPI, for crying out loud. I'm not going to tell him what to do. Right. But you know, it's going to take some time. I don't know if they're going to be able to fix it or not. But here's a simple way to play complementary football. And this is going to sound oversimplified. You have to do a better job of keeping the offense on the field so you don't put so much pressure on the defense.
All right.
You got to convert on third downs. Right. You got to eat clock. You got to play ball. You got to play field position football, which means you need to be dedicated to the run. And you had an offensive coordinator, first year, Brian Johnson, who admitted that a couple of weeks ago, said not only do we need to run the ball, we need to be dedicated to staying with the run, even if it doesn't work. Fair
enough. All right, Sal, let me posit this to you. Do you see a notable lack of speed amongst the Eagles' back seven, in the secondary and at the linebacker position?
Sure. That's been the big problem.
Right. Right.
Speed.
And that, go ahead.
They're not young enough. They're not fast enough. They're just not good enough to play man-to-man.
Right.
And Matt Patricia plays a lot of man. He played that in New England. That's what Bill Belichick wants to do. But when you don't have those man-to-man cover skill guys with speed, it's hard to do.
Sal, Shaq Leonard so far, now, of course, he's only had, a game and a half worth of exposure here, but 2 tackles, 4 assists. Were there maybe expectations too high, or do you think it's just a matter of him getting his feet under him?
Yeah, let's take some time there and see if they can figure it out. They've been trying to figure it out, the linebacker and secondary position. Again, I go back to play complementary football. The offense must help the defense.
Right. Okay. All right. Sal, just one more word before we get to this other screen. I want to show you just one other word about this game. I see this, Sal. I'm a big NFL psychology guy. I think this is a massive get-well game. You know what it reminds me of, Sal? You remember years ago the Eagles hosted Arizona. The Eagles got dusted in Baltimore.
Yeah. I remember that. I remember that. Donovan McNabb got benched in that game.
Exactly correct. And then they came back to face Arizona on a Thursday night game, and the Cardinals didn't even want to get off the plane. And the Eagles just dusted them. I see the same scenario coming up. Give me a quick take on that.
Yeah, remember Andy Reid said sometimes you got to take a step back take a step forward. That was the famous quote from Big Red about Donovan McNabb, right?
Yeah.
Hey, same is true with Jalen.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to bench Jalen, but in his mind, he has to understand that the way he's playing, he could have been benched in other circumstances. And he's gone through that before in his career. He's got to step back. He's got to make an honest assessment of how he's been playing. And he's got to fix it along with, what did Nick Sirianni say today? This is my offense.
He did. Yep.
He sounded like Alexander Haig after Watergate.
I'm in charge here. That's correct. Yes. All right, Zana, bring that screen up for me. Sal, I want to start here. This is the playoff picture. You'll excuse my logo is right in the way there. But
got to have the logo, Pat. It's all about branding, Sal. Pat. It's about branding.
That's very good. I want to start, though, with the star on the helmet. Sal, I just sat there just thinking, I'm shaking my head at how poorly they played in Buffalo last week. And I'm becoming now of the camp that says this is a team that's strictly like the Lions, that plays very well when there's a roof over their heads and 90,000 adoring Cowboy fans. Yeah. I don't know about the Cowboys at all. I mean, I think they really lost a lot of goodwill with that performance last week. What's your take on that?
Well, I think you have to look at the matchup. It was, first of all, outdoors in the rain. Buffalo right now leads the NFL in first downs per game. They lead the NFL in third down conversion rate. All I want for Christmas, if I'm an NFL head coach right now, is to not play the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
They are a runaway train.
Right, you are. Right,
Sean McDermott and Josh Allen are coming down the chimney, and they're taking the tree and the roast beast. They're the Grinches right now, stealing your Christmas.
That is true, and they're at the Charger team that doesn't want to.
Yeah. Right. So let's look at it, Miami now. Now, if you watch Dan Orlovsky at all, and I'm inviting people after you're done watching Pat Callahan and This Week in Pro Football, go on the internet and look at Orlovsky's breakdown on Get Up and NFL Live of exactly what Buffalo did when they ran the football against the light Dallas Cowboys defense, running right at number 14 of the Cowboys.
Correct. I saw it, Sal. I was just going to say to you, where you
sometimes the game is simple, Pat.
Right.
When they don't have enough bodies to stop the run, you run it at them, and you keep running at them until they stop you. That's it.
Yep. We just got done saying how the Eagles' defense is a little too slow. The Cowboys' defense is too small. When they're up 38-7, as they were during their hot streak, well, that doesn't matter because
doesn't matter. Now you look at Miami. Right. Miami is number 1 in rushing yards per carry, 5.1. They're 4th overall running the football. Mostert is one of the best running backs in the NFL. This is an example where you have a young coach, Mike McDaniel. He doesn't have to overthink it. He just has to plug in the tape of that Buffalo game and run it right at the Cowboys and run them right out of South Florida.
All right. That's going to be interesting, Sal. I think you're right. I think you diagnosed that one right. I think Dallas is in for another long day. Okay. Sal, let's take a look. We'll stay in the NFC, the right side of the picture here. And just give me a couple teams including these other seeds that you think are rising in the NFC and are teams that could be heard from before the regular season's over.
I don't see it, Pat. I don't see any teams rising in the NFC. I see teams rising in the AFC. I see teams that can do some damage right now. I think, but in the NFC, I just don't see it. I mean,
one point then. You agree with me then that the Lions, impressive win last week against Denver, but I didn't take that. I did not change my opinion of the Lions as an indoor hothouse team and a team that's I don't think is positioned to make a deep run.
Well, I think they have one of the best young offensive coordinators in Ben Johnson. They will spread you out and go 5 wide 70% of the time. So they make you defend the entire field, but that only works when the crowd is nice and quiet. The temperature, the temperature is climate controlled
exactly.
by somebody in some office somewhere. That's where that
Right.
works. That's
fair.
not going to work. That's not going to work in Buffalo, or well, they don't have to play Buffalo. But I
That's
mean,
fair enough.
it's definitely not going to work in South Philadelphia. I can tell you that right
Okay.
now.
Okay. All right, Sal. Now the AFC. You did mention there's a couple teams. You mentioned one specifically, Buffalo, which is right now the 9 seed. Is there anybody
Buffalo?
else?
I think Buffalo wins out and they win the division. I think they win out and win the division. I mean, the only way that they can stop Buffalo is Buffalo stops itself.
Right.
And Josh Allen goes on one of those streaks where he's turning the football over. I don't see it with the new offensive coordinator. I think he's got him under control. Buffalo wins out and wins the division. Kansas City is still there.
Yeah,
they're still there, Pat.
Just going to say that, Sal. I would never count the Chiefs out. Never. I agree.
And I'm anxious to see how Baltimore does on the road and how the Dolphins just close out the Cowboys this week. But the one team that I have my eye on the road this week is the Cleveland Browns.
All right.
Because Flacco's in one of those grooves.
Right.
And Jim Schwartz and that defense is real, totally real, 100%. They'll shut you down in a heartbeat.
Great pickup by the Browns there, grabbing Flacco. That was
Joe Flacco, Audubon, New Jersey, baby.
Saved their season. But I always thought Sal Flacco threw one of the nicest spirals. He throws a ball like Warren Moon. He throws a ball tight spiral, and it gets where it's going in a hurry. And he's been a season saver.
Went to New England in the playoffs and beat Belichick and Brady and the Patriots on his way to winning the Super Bowl.
And he really should have beat him the season before, but the guy dropped the touchdown pass, which would have won the game. Remember? They missed a field goal. But
walking his dog right before Thanksgiving dinner, Pat. Out there walking the dog.
There you go.
Watching the games and walking the dog. Hello? Right. Hey, yeah. Kevin Stefanski, your old friend.
Yeah, how about that?
Come on and join us. Let's go to the playoffs together. All right, here I come.
Sal Pal, the matchup show coming up this weekend. Obviously, as everything tightens up and the games get much more important, that's a show that nobody can miss. So what's on tap there?
Oh, yeah, we got a great show for you this week, Pat. Darius Butler, Greg Cosell. We're going to break down the big games, obviously, Baltimore and San Francisco, Miami, and Dallas. And don't forget, all over the Delaware Valley, there are signed copies of Philly Special in the Barnes & Noble if you're looking for that last-minute Christmas stocking stuffer, Pat.
Yeah. Excellent. Signed copy. There's no better gift. Signed copy of Philly Special, a great book by Sal. Make sure you check that out. Sal, I hope you don't have to work Christmas Day, do you? I guess they're
Pat.
They're dragooning you out there.
Yeah, I don't know why they do it, but they put Christmas in the middle of the football season. It's crazy.
All right. Well, listen, Sal Paolantonio, Merry Christmas to you and to Mrs. Sal and to everybody else in that family. And look forward to seeing your stuff over the weekend. And we'll talk to you next week. It's going to get even hotter. All right.
All right, Pat.
All right. Sal Paolantonio joining me there. Thank you very much to Sal. Great segment there. A lot to discern. We'll do some of that with my next guest. Sean Green's going to be joining me. We're going to talk Eagle Giants. We're going to talk Cowboys, Dolphins, and a little Rams Saints as we take a look at the ledger side of the National Football League. We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football, presented by